Hey everybody, it's Kelly. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Therapist. This week we are talking about morals, purity, and dress codes. They're all the same thing. Spoiler alert. Before we get too deep into the topic today, I just want to remind you that it would be really helpful to me if you would take a moment to subscribe, to comment if you want to interact with any of this information. Give me a thumbs up if you like the video, and ring the bell if you haven't already for notifications when I publish. Thank you so much. All right, so for those of you who follow me on any of my social media outlets, you'll know that I've been a little fired up recently, and the reason I've been fired up is because of dress codes. School is getting back in session. There's a lot of conversation in my area about what is appropriate for people to wear to school and what is not. The thing that really led this topic off for me, though, is that I was on a forum which was discussing the new rules for clothing for students, and someone said,
parents send their girls to class in coochie cutters and then be all upset when boys harass them. Uniforms, y'all.
There's a lot going on in this comment, and we are going to get into all of it. But the biggest thing that I want to call out in it is the idea of moral defining based on appearance. Morals are a standard of behavior or belief. Just plain and simple, that's what a moral is. From a societal standpoint, though, they indicate the sanctioned beliefs and ideas and behaviors by the majority. In prepping for today, I decided to do some research into modesty, dress code, the history of such. I went down the rabbit hole for y'all. It was deep. It was a little dark. It was pretty scary. I did come to this article that was published in the 1700s, 18 pages long. Let me tell you what I do for you guys, right? The article talked about modesty in the current situations they found themselves in as a society. The author made some good points. He made some really invalid and frankly gross points also, but the ones that he made that I found interesting, I want to share with you. First, he talks about equilibrium, and this is something that I talk to a lot of my clients about also. The body and the mind strive towards equilibrium, and so if something is pulling really hard in one direction, the body and the mind tends to fight it and go in the other direction because they both want equilibrium. Not stasis, but equilibrium. Balance. He also states, and I wouldn't disagree with this statement either, that society strives for the same balance. Now, society is driven by humans, and so why wouldn't it be, right? The idea of the pendulum swing makes sense, right? You go, an overcorrection on this end requires people to run to the other end for an overcorrection, and somehow we swing through the middle of some sort of sanity, right? In this article, this gentleman writes that in the animal kingdom, females are coy in order to attract the males. The biological imperative is for procreation and furthering of the species, and so it will do whatever it takes to rile the male of the species into a frenzy. That's a direct quote, by the way. Rile him into a frenzy and then not give into him until the very last minute. He then supposes that that is the same behavior that females are engaging in because they do the same thing, where they will tease and show a little bit of skin or show a little bit of something or flirt a little bit, and then when the man shows attention or attraction, they'll run away. And he says that that is a response to the fact that mating or pairing with someone is essentially a seizure. It is the female's rebellion against being seized. The problems here is that it still supposes that women are there to be seized. Women are there to be owned by the men. That is the thinking that has been prevalent in society for longer than any of us have been alive. And the problem is it still is wrong, and it doesn't seem to be changing in the bigger picture. We've made advances. Women can, vote and own property and have a reasonable assumption that as long as she does what society tells her to do, she won't be taken advantage of or end up in a violent interaction with a person. I think many people think that we should just be grateful for that and be okay with it. That's a problem. The society in America started as a Christian nation with men in charge. All of the morals and the assumptions that were applied to society as a whole at the founding were based on the belief system of those who founded or were credited with founding the nation itself. That's where people today will say that we have to bring Christ back into the schools and into the world. And I talked in my last video about that, which you can go check out. And I encourage you to if you haven't watched it. But the idea that men are protecting women is frankly laughable on a bigger scale, because that's why they say this, right? When we bring up dress codes in school, well, the women need to be protected. But the argument that they use is the way they are dressing is distracting from the learning environment. Here's the thing. If I go to class and I'm talking to someone and therefore I'm not learning, I get in trouble because I'm distracted and not learning. But if a girl goes to school with spaghetti strap tank top and someone is distracted by that, the one wearing the clothing gets in trouble, not the one who's being distracted. Where is the onus on those who cannot keep their hands, eyes, and brains to themselves? There isn't one. This links back to the idea that society looks for equilibrium, because when there is something that is distracting from the way that we are doing things, like the call to make dress codes gender neutral and the call to put more significance on the learning environment and actual learning and education and instructional time than there is to policing children's bodies. The place that we have put women in at this point, due to this idea of modesty and purity and religion that is being mistaken for morals, is that they don't ever know their worth if it's not in a transactional understanding with someone else. Have you ever heard of the 3-date rule? A man would take a woman out for a date up to 3 times before she would do anything overtly sexual with him. But after 3 times, she owed it to him because he had taken her out and paid for her food and shown her a good time. And so she owed him sex or something similar. If someone wants to buy me dinner, great. Thank you. I appreciate it. All you need is my thanks. And in fact, you shouldn't be doing it for thanks either, but that's a whole different topic. That's all I owe you is a thank you. And even that's just because I want to be polite, not because I actually owe you anything. You never owe anyone any part of you. That's the first thing that I want you to understand here. The second thing is the added understanding, and this is where it goes back to religion and back to what youth ministries teach. This idea that is taught to girls: every time you have sex with a guy, you're giving part of yourself to him, and then part of yourself to this one, and then part of yourself to this one. And then when you meet the person you do want to give all of yourself to, you don't have anything left of yourself. You are not finite in the parts of you that you share with others. You are giving nothing away. You are inviting in. You are sharing in a moment with someone, whether you're speaking with them or you're having sex with them. Your job is not to keep yourself together for the person you're going to marry. Your job is actually to build boundaries and build relationships that help you to become your favorite version of yourself. That's your job. The idea that relationships are transactional is everywhere in this idea of morals that mirror religion and purity, keeping yourself chaste for the person you're going to marry. I hate to break it to you, but the actual marital statistics do not reflect the idea that you're going to be with the first person you marry for the rest of your life. Not the majority of people. The implications of this widespread, long-reaching idea that relationships are transactional, that women are responsible for men, and that they need to dress accordingly, those implications are so deep when it comes to women, because when that message is taught, when you're continually told you need to cover up, your skin is embarrassing, you're causing someone else to sin, this is your fault, you end up feeling guilty about how you look, but also feeling like you have to continue to look a certain way in order to be acceptable to society. So really that means don't wear too much makeup, but definitely wear makeup. Don't do your hair in such a way that you appear untouchable, but definitely do your hair and don't look messy. Make sure that you are appealing to someone emotionally and physically, and that you are meeting other people's needs, but don't you dare have needs for yourself that need to be met, because that will make you too much to handle and no one will want you. It doesn't matter who you are. Our society has told you that all of our interactions with each other are exchanges, that it's capitalism at its most bizarre, that your worth and your personhood is able to be exchanged for someone else's, money or time or 99-cent cheeseburger. I don't know. When it comes back to dress codes, and it comes back to that comment that this man made on the forum talking about bodies and dress code, the implications are different. Number one, we have an older man who is passing judgment on parents for allowing their kids to walk out of the house like that. We have a man who is talking about children's coochies. Do you get that? When you say the word coochie cutter, what's a coochie? What are those shorts cutting? Do you hear it? Please tell me that you hear it. You watching this hear it at least. That's so inappropriate. These are children, sir. Number two, the quote expects nothing from the guys involved.
Well, of course they're going to harass them. The girls are wearing short shorts.
What? How about you just don't harass people? How about you get yourself under control and don't harass people? Because here's the thing, and I will tell you this because I've worked with teenagers for a very, very long time. They know. They know that they are not expected to handle themselves properly. They know that if you are policing the girl's dress, you are not doing anything about the boy's behavior. That doesn't mean they're all going to harass, and that doesn't mean they are all thinking this way, but they know. They all know. They're watching. They're watching the comments you put out there on Facebook. They're watching the tweets that you tweet. You see this all of the time, right? I do anyway, on my Facebook and everything, these memes that say, look, this famous person that you are lashing out against for the way they dress or the songs they sing or the people they keep company with or the way they move their body. They are never going to see your tweet or your Instagram statement or your story, but the people that love you do. They're seeing it and they're internalizing it. And we see where your focus is. And your focus is the parents need to do something about these girls so these boys don't harass them. No. We need to be teaching people who harass to stop harassing. How do you do that? In a lot of places, in a lot of people's lives that put religion at the top of their life, it needs to start there. Dress codes need to stop. The idea of your worth being in your pureness and your modesty needs to stop. Quick side note. Do you realize that in reality, the idea of purity and modesty and covering up until you're with your husband actually comes from the idea that women are far too powerful for men to control themselves around. So they have to cover things up, and then they can be their husband's problem, and their husband can be out of control around them, but they'll be the perfect maid servant when they're not in the bedroom. That's where it comes from. It comes from a time when we assumed that that's all women were a vessel for a man to work his issues out in. It's not what I am. We know better now. We know better now than to treat people like that. So why are we still pushing rules and expectations on people that treat people that way? We're not going back. I'm not going back. Are you? Dress codes and the verbalization of such and the judgment of those who do not follow them to the letter leads to bad self-esteem, it leads to victim blaming, it leads to rape culture, and it leads to a general distrust of authority by young people, because the people in authority are the ones making them feel victimized and making them feel like objects. Is that what we're trying to do in a learning environment? I don't think so. Dress codes cause people to focus overly on their bodies and their physical appearances and not on the other things they bring into relationship. You're not preparing them for modesty and for the outside world. You are shaming them for their bodies now. They're not looking back at this and thinking, oh, yeah, I did that thing wrong and I should do it differently. And being made to wear an oversized t-shirt over my tank top absolutely taught me that lesson. No, all that teaches them is shame. Think about the long-term lesson that this person is actually going to be learning, not the long-term lesson that you think you're teaching them. That's it for today. Thank you so much for being here. I hope that you have a great week. Next week, we'll still be talking about this because it's still August, it's still Religious Trauma Month. Don't forget to subscribe and to share this if you found any of it helpful. I can't wait to see you next week. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other.